A brand new God of War game was just announced. I've played it. I saw a lot of accessibility in it. So let's talk about it. I'm Steve Saylor, I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I can play video games if I'm blind, if you take a look at the video here or click the link in the description down below, you can see exactly what I see when I'm playing video games. So yes, the long-rumored and shadow-dropped God of War 2D platformer / Metroidvania game was just announced at yesterday's Sony State of Play. I'm recording this the morning after the State of Play, and it was the surprise shadow drop of the entire 60 plus minutes presentation, which was already jam-packed with a lot of cool stuff, including the announcement of a God of War trilogy remake happening from Sony Santa Monica. But this game, this God of War 2D platformer or 2D Metroidvania had been long rumored for quite a bit, and we didn't even know really a lot about it. We didn't even know that Sony Santa Monica was making it, but they did partner up with another studio. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but God of War Sons of Sparta was a shadow drop yesterday. I immediately jumped into it, hoping that there would be some accessibility or maybe even some continuation of accessibility from God of War Ragnarok that Sony Santa Monica did when that came out, because there was a ton of accessibility then. So I was very curious to see what Sony Santa Monica was going to do with this one. And there is a ton of accessibility. But before I get into that, I want to give my sort of general thoughts of just the first impressions of the first few hours of playing this game. I don't play a lot of Metroidvanias, especially in this kind of style. So the only touch point I have to this is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which I really did like and also love the accessibility of. And I was actually surprised that some of the accessibility that I had experienced in Prince of Persia was also in this. And I think with that, it actually kind of helped add to the excitement for me to be able to play this game and enjoy basically a younger Kratos in the world of Sparta before he became the God of War himself. He's a teenage Kratos. You can see a little bit of his life. And I think actually, so far, just from the few hours I played, you could see a little bit of the Kratos that we know and love in there, but he is also a teenage Spartan soldier. So there actually is a little bit of that kind of affableness of a teenager in this. So it's not as sort of boy like kind of God of War that we've seen in multiple games now.
At least I talk to girls.
I talk to girls.
Oh, yeah, when they trip and happen to land near you.
And even then, they stay. Must be my charm.
We kind of have a little bit of, he actually has some relationships and some friendships with some friends. He actually has friends, so it's kind of like the lone wolf that we've seen sort of of Kratos, at least in the past few games. We definitely don't have in this one. So and I think that seeing a teenage Kratos, I'm very curious to see how this game kind of develops and sees how we kind of learn more about Kratos as we go, and just what life was like for Kratos pre the events of the first God of War. I really do like the gameplay of this. I think that it has that Metroidvania kind of style. Obviously, there's certain abilities and skills that you unlock, and you can basically go back to certain places and find them. You can be able to add checkpoints onto the map, which is great. So if you find that, okay, there's this area where you need to, like there's a treasure chest you want to go back to, you can be able to add like a little treasure chest icon. There's not a lot of icons, but there's enough to be able to, like, I think kind of work around that you can be able to at least know where you're to go. I would have liked to seen maybe the memory shards type feature from Prince of Persia in this for accessibility, having a screenshot of the area instead of just a colored icon. I'm fine with the color icon, but I would have liked to, hey, that would have been cool to have the screenshot, because I think that that's a good feature just going forward in Metroidvanias, regardless of its accessibility. I find that the enemies are challenging, including even the mini boss and the bosses. There were several times that even with the accessibility that I had, and even running on the normal difficulty, I found the bosses actually quite challenging. There was many times I died, but I was able to learn the patterns of them and figure out what was sort of the best defense for these types of attacks that they're doing. So I thought that was great. I'm very curious to see what the story goes. It's definitely a very sort of grounded based game. There's definitely the Greek mythological creatures that you have in there, but it's a little bit more grounded, where Kratos doesn't have sort of superhuman strength, obviously, just yet as a god of war. So far, I will say this, I mean, you see in the trailer, he has a spear, so he doesn't have his blades of chaos yet. Which I mean, I've never played the original trilogy, so I don't know when he gets those, if that's something that happens in that versus in this. I don't know, but it'd be kind of cool to be able to see something like that a little bit going forward. I don't know. But my first impression of this, I liked it a lot. And so let's now talk about the accessibility. And I think the best way to be able to do that is literally just going through the settings, because there is a lot. So you can be able to adjust the settings pretty much right off the hop. You don't, and a lot of the accessibility from Ragnarok actually did make it into Sons of Sparta, including there's a few things in here that I found was a really nice touch, especially this aspect of if you change a setting, it changes the text to blue, so that way you know if you've changed a setting from its default state, which I think is great. They had that in Ragnarok, they have it in this one. So you can definitely see Sony Santa Monica having its definite like handprints or fingerprints or thumbprints, I don't know, all over this type of game. So they have obviously an aim assist, they have a puzzle aim assist, puzzle timing. You can be able to keep the tutorial mode on or a guided experience. You can have change auto pickups. You can choose menu holds to timing to be fast or long if you need it. You can do change repeated button presses from taps to holds. You can change the traversal inputs to be modern or classic modern. Basically, you hit triangle whenever you are near a ladder or a rope to be able to climb. But you can be able to go classic, where you can just jump towards them or go towards them and just hit the up on the thumb pad or on the left thumbstick. Also, finally, PlayStation, remembering that they have a touchpad on the DualSense controller, you can actually be able to change the trackpad or the touchpad buttons to be able to have to do multiple different things. Isn't that great? So one of the things you can be able to do, you can actually be able to change the touchpad to basically just be one large button, or you can be able to have left or right left to be the map, or right to be the gear menu. So you can be able to have quick access to that. You can also change the swipe commands, both on left, like left and right, and up and down, to be even go to other different menu items, including especially if you have some of the HUD turned off. You can have some of the, like, basically a status like update if you just swipe up or whatever you want to map it to. So unfortunately, there's no accessibility shortcut for these, unfortunately, but I would love to have seen that, if to be able to turn things on or off. But you know, hey, I appreciate that you can be able to just use the touchpad in multiple different ways than just one large button. You can, they have a wide variety of subtitle options, similar to kind of how we've seen in a lot of games. You can change speaker tag color, text subtitle color, size, background, opacity, that kind of thing. I actually found that I enjoyed, like, I did change it from, I had a semi-transparent subtitle background, but I think I changed it to a more opaque because I found that sometimes that the text isn't strong enough or bold enough to be able to be read properly through the environment itself. But I think this works. You can be able to customize this a lot. I will say, though, there is captions, supposedly, but I don't know if they work, because there is one point where I got in the game where it actually just says caption here. I think that's a mistake. At least I hope that's a mistake. So PlayStation, just a heads up, you probably might want to fix that a little bit because you're missing some of the captions. There is an audio cues, and there actually is audio glossary. Audio cue glossary that let me see if we can find it. Here we go. Now it has a similar sort of sounds as we've seen in other games like The Last of Us or God of War, but you'll be able to go through and be able to learn these audio cues through the menu itself. I explored a little bit of it. I do think that I probably would suggest increasing the volume of those audio cues and having the rest of the volume kind of be lowered so that they stand out a little bit more. Because I find that some audio cues just don't stand out as well as I'd hoped for that. There's also, you can be able to change the UI text size, interact icon size, which is great, to, like, basically to set up to all the way up to extra large. And you can even turn on a background contrast as well, which is really, really nice. They have colorblind filters. Please, developers, if you're watching this, don't do colorblind filters. they simulate color blindness more than they actually fix the color blindness. So just give options to be able to change colors if you have that capability. Just a heads up for me. And they also have high contrast display, which actually, and they have several custom presets for you, but you can be able to customize them yourself. You can change the hero color, companion color, boss color, enemy color. I played around with a few of these. I actually found that I think the lighting high contrast preset actually kind of being the one I enjoyed the most, which basically keeps the background as is, keeps Kratos as is, but changes the companion color to more of a blue and the enemies to red, but then and a pink or slash kind of purple for bosses, and then also for any interactables being a bright cyan color, which actually I think works out really, really well and helps me be able to see things that I wouldn't have been able to see if they just because they just blend into the environment. So I think that with the accessibility, there are certain things just based on my first impressions that I think I really like. I like what they did for deaf and hard hearing, of course, with subtitles, and everything being on the same screen is great because then you don't have to worry about any enemies attacking kind of from off camera. There's some enemies that come in from off camera, but you can pretty much see them leading up to you, so it's not, and there's a pretty wide camera angle, so you're not having to really worry about that. For motor disabled players, you can be able to remap the controls. Controls are pretty simple because it is on a 2D plane, so there's not a lot of need for camera movement. You can be able to use your right stick as a camera to be able to kind of pan up and down and left and right if you just to kind of see what's beyond the boundaries of the screen that you're in, which I think is great. Cognitive accessibility, I think, is good so far. I haven't really seen anything particularly that kind of stood out to me as being issues, other than I think potentially maybe the map or being able to navigate the world just through Metroidvania. Again, having the markers to be able to will also help with being so that you're not lost. Would like to see the short screenshots feature, but that's fine. It does. I don't necessarily. I know that's an Ubisoft thing, but hopefully I would love to be able to see that screenshot feature being used in other Metroidvanias going forward. Would love to have seen that here, but it's not. I think probably the biggest trouble would probably be more totally blind players, not necessarily all blind players, because totally blind players, unfortunately, there's no screen reader, there's no TTS, and there is some text that are important to be able to tell you what to do, including when you're upgrading your skills. There are certain combos that you need to be able to know what to do in order to be able to accomplish those combos. And there is not a lot of audio navigational assistance. There are audio cues, of course, that help you in the screen that you're in, but being able to navigate the map and the world around you, there's unfortunately, if you're hoping from that have a version of that from Ragnarok in this, unfortunately there's just nothing there for you. It's not impossible for totally blind players to play this, but I think it is doable. But you probably will need sighted assistance in order to be able to play this fully. I think if they can direct you to where enemies are and where and what the bosses are doing, I think you can be able to learn how to be able to play them on your own, or defeat them on your own. But I will say that you probably are going to have a little bit more difficult time and a more challenging time to be able to play that. So, fortunately, totally blind players are unfortunately kind of left out of this one. Hopefully there's new updates to the game now that Shadow dropped and they're able to take accessibility feedback. Hopefully we'll see maybe some updates in the future to be able to help support this game and make this even more accessible to as many players as possible. So my first impressions, I won't give an accessibility score. I think so far, I think it's great. I think it's definitely recommended. It is $30 to $40 depending on which country you're in. So I probably, if the accessibility doesn't seem like there's enough there for you, I probably would wait to maybe a sale, or if you're able to get gifted one, that'd be great. But I think that it might be unfortunate with some digital policy, refund policies, you may not be able to get a refund if you can't play this game. So just a heads up, probably, be wary of their purchase if you find that there's certain accessibility that you need that is not here. So I would say I would recommend it, but with a caveat, with an asterisk of it's not going to be accessible to all players, but it does a pretty good job of trying to be able to match the spectrum of most disabled players. So that's it for me. I'm excited. I want to jump back into Sons of Sparta. Let's do this. Yeah. I actually changed my video around this week. This week was supposed to be a review for High on Life 2. So I will do that next week as my next week's video. So make sure you subscribe to be able to see that if you want to know my thoughts on High on Life 2. We'll have that for next week. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Hope you click the like button if you really like this video. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.